is an immense fortification of ice that spans the northern boundary of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, dividing it from the untamed lands beyond, the home of the free folk and the others in the distant cold wastes. Stretching 100 leagues in length, approximately 300 miles, it towers more than 700 feet at its highest point. The wall is manned and defended by the sworn brothers of the Night's Watch, who patrol its length and guard its 19 castles built along its base, stretching from the Frostfang mountain range in the west to the icy Bay of Seals in the east. By the beginning of the events chronicled in the Song of Ice and Fire, only 3 of these strongholds remained garrisoned: the Shadow Tower, Castle Black, and Eastwatch-by-the-Sea. Some of these castles were very small and minor, others huge strongholds that would rival the seats of some lords to the south. Each has its own history, and each has its own reason for its abandonment. However, the current Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow, has begun to garrison these abandoned castles, using members of the Free Folk, allowed through the wall, to defend against the coming of the White Walkers and the long night. It was not long until the first of the brothers from the Shadow Tower began wending their way up the slope. All in leather and fur they were, with here and there a bit of steel or bronze. Heavy beards covered hard, lean faces, and made them look as shaggy as the garrisons. The thoughts of Jon Snow. A Clash of Kings, chapter 43. Jon 5. The westernmost castle is Eastwatch-by-the-Bridge, located near the Gorge and the Bridge of Skulls. Located east of this now abandoned castle is the much larger Shadow Tower, the westernmost of the inhabited castles of the Night's Watch. The close-by Shadow Tower stands near the northern mountains at the wall's western end, and during the events of the main book series is commanded by Sir Dennis Mallister, with Maester Mullin serving alongside him. Approximately 200 brothers of the Night's Watch are stationed here. On occasion, free folk have attempted to evade the castle's patrols by descending into the gorge itself to bypass the Shadow Tower. Prior to Aegon's conquest, a ranger known as Redwyn, during the reign of King Doran Stark, wrote an account of ranging from the Shadow Tower to Lorne's Point on the frozen shore. During that ranging, they fought giants and traded with the children of the forest. Sir Dennis Mallister has been in command of the Shadow Tower since 267 AC. Mance Rayder, the current King Beyond the Wall, once served at the Shadow Tower before he abandoned the Night's Watch. The story goes that Mance's black cloak was torn when he was attacked by a shadow cat during a ranging beyond the wall, so a free folk woman mended it with red silk. When Dennis ordered Mance to wear an all-black cloak once more when the ranger returned to the Shadow Tower, Mance deserted the next morning. East from the Shadow Tower sits Sentinel Stand. However, we have no recorded information about this castle. East of Sentinel Stand, you will find Greyguard. It's largely collapsed into ruin, with all that remains being the huge stone steps to the top of the wall and the gate the Night's Watch once used to pass beyond the wall. Greyguard had been abandoned for at least 200 years, and a section of the steps up the wall collapsed a century ago, but you can still navigate them. East of Greyguard is Stonedoor. Lord Commander Jon Mormont once contemplated reinstating this castle, but never did so. However, it was chosen as one of the castles to garrison the Free Folk by Lord Commander Jon Snow, along with its neighbour to the east, Hoarfrost Hills. Icemark lays east of Hoarfrost Hills, and was once proposed by Corin Halfhand as a candidate to be regarrisoned with a small force to deal with wildling incursions that frequently happened in the area, but it would not be regarrisoned until Jon Snow's plan with the wildlings, where Icemark became the home of 20 wildlings alongside 10 men from the forces of Stannis Baratheon, with a Night's Watch ranger known as Bedwick put in command of the castle. It's so huge that men seemed dwarfed by it, like mice in a ruined hall, and there is a darkness there, a taste in the air. I was so glad to leave that place. Alysanne Targaryen to Jaehaerys Targaryen, fire and blood, Jaehaerys to Alysanne. The Night Fort was the largest and oldest of the castles along the wall, twice as ancient as Castle Black, if tales are to be believed. Its chronicles tell of an ancient war at Sea Dragon Point, where the Kings of Winter, the Starks of Winterfell, fought against the Warg King and the Children of the Forest. which is a testament to the Nightfort's age. For thousands of years, the Nightfort has loomed large in northern folklore, remembered as a place of darkness and dread. It was said to be the seat of the Night King before his name was erased from all records, and the setting of the infamous tale of the Rat Cook, who served an Andal king a pie filled with the flesh of his own sons. It was also the site of countless other grim legends. The 79 Sentinels who stood on an eternal watch, the tragic fate of young Danny Flint, the curse of King Sherrit upon the Andals, the nameless thing that came at night, blind Simon Stareyes and his hellhounds, and the bloody rampage of Mad Axe through the castle's darkened halls. Many of these stories are recorded in Archmaester Harmon's Watchers on the Wall. Roughly 300 years before Aegon's conquest, the commanders of the Nightfort and Snowgate went to war with one another, a conflict that ended with both men losing their heads to a king of House Stark. As the Night's Watch declined in strength, the vast fortress became largely empty and ruinous, far too large and costly to maintain. During Queen Alysanne's visit to the Wall in 58 AC, First Ranger Benton Glover escorted her from Castle Black to the Nightfort. Finding it gloomy and inhospitable, Alysanne persuaded Lord Commander Lothar Burleigh to abandon it in favour of a smaller, more manageable stronghold. Using her own jewels to fund its construction, she commissioned the building of Deep Lake, 7 miles to the east. Once Deep Lake was completed, the Nightfort officially became abandoned, and its remaining brothers were reassigned to Deep Lake. According to maesters who once served at the Nightfort, the castle was rebuilt numerous times over the course of 1,000 years, leaving only the deepest stone vaults as remnants of the original structure. Now long abandoned, the Nightfort lies in utter ruin. Its towers are broken. It still has a network of vast tunnels that wind through the vaults and lower levels. Among the surviving structures are a bell tower, a rookery, a brewhouse, and an empty library, a large dungeon capable of holding 500 prisoners, a bathhouse, an armory, and a forge. The Great Hall, overrun with rats, still stands, but only one of its walls remains completely intact. The castle's kitchen, an 8-sided stone building crowned by a domed roof, contains a stepped well at the centre. Nature has reclaimed much of the castle. The once open yard has grown into a small forest, and weirwoods have pierced the kitchen roof, and trees now reside within the stables. The ground-level tunnel through the wall has long been sealed with ice and rubble. Hidden deep within the kitchen well lies the Black Gate, an ancient and magical doorway that grants passage beneath the wall. It's said to be as old as the wall itself. It remains one of the fortress's most mysterious and enduring secrets. The Black Gate is used by Bran Stark, Mira Reed, and Jojen Reed to get beyond the wall during the events of the main books. The gate is also used by Samwell Tarly and Gilly to come back the other way. Deep Lake lies east of the Nightfort, and as we know was built during the reign of King Jaehaerys, making it the newest castle on the wall. The idea was it was supposed to be a smaller, cheaper replacement for the Nightfort, with Queen Alysanne Targaryen convincing Lothar Burleigh, Lord Commander of the Watch, to replace the older castle. Deep Lake was paid with for jewels donated by Alysanne, and built over 8 years by men the king sent north. A statue of Alysanne is outside of the main hall, in honour of her support. The castle was located 7 miles east of the Nightfort, where the wall curves around the southern shore of a beautiful Green Lake, a tributary that flows west to the Milkwater River. It was once again regarrisoned by Lord Commander Jon Snow during the events in the main books. To the east you will find the castle of Queensgate. For centuries it was known as Snowgate, but in thanks to Queen Alysanne's funding the construction of Deep Lake and her role in securing the new gift for the Watch, Lord Commander Burleigh renamed the castle in Queen Alysanne's honour. Queensgate was once overwhelmed by 3,000 wildlings led by Silas the Grim in 133 AC. Lord Cregan Stark hunted down the wildlings with the aid of the Flints, Glovers, Norries, and Rangers from the Watch. Lord Commander Jon Snow later gives Queensgate to Morna Whitemask to garrison with her people, adding another castle to the defences against the White Walkers. Castle Black lay below him, etched in moonlight. You can see how stark and empty it was from up here. Windowless keeps, crumbling walls, courtyards choked with broken stone. Farther off, he could see the lights of Molestown, the little village half a league south along the King's Road, and here and there, the bright glitter of moonlight on water where icy streams descended from the mountain heights to cut across the plains. The thoughts of Tyrion Lannister, A Game of Thrones Chapter 21, Tyrion 3. Castle Black is the main stronghold of the Night's Watch and the seat of their Lord Commander, located at almost the midpoint of the wall, at the northern end of the King's Road. The village of Molestown is located half a league to the south along the King's Road. Castle Black is an ancient fortress, though is still younger than the Nightfort, the Watch's first and oldest castle, with the Nightfort at least twice the age of Castle Black. In time, Castle Black replaced the Nightfort as the seat of the Lord Commander, a transition that occurred at least 6 centuries ago. In 58 AC, Lord Commander Lothar Burleigh welcomed Queen Alysanne Targaryen and her dragon, Silverwing, to Castle Black during her royal visit to the north. Despite the Queen's encouragement, Silverwing refused to fly beyond the wall, an event that has now since passed into legend. In its prime, Castle Black housed more than 5,000 fighting men, along with their servants and support staff. That number has greatly diminished over the centuries, and by the time of Lord Commander George Mormont at the start of the main books, only around 600 sworn brothers remain to man its halls and defend the wall. Castle Black is not a true castle in a traditional sense, for it lacks a defensive wall on the west, eastern and southern sides. Only the wall itself stands as a northern bulwark. The stronghold consists of a cluster of stone towers and timber keeps, simple and functional rather than grand. Beneath these structures lies a network of subterranean passages connecting the various buildings. These tunnels are used little in the warmer seasons, but in the depths of winter when snow and wind render the courtyard impassable, they become the only means of moving safely through the fortress. Castle Black contains a modest sept, tended by Septon Celador, though it has no godsword. Those who want to keep the old gods may travel half a league beyond the wall, to the haunted forest, where a small grove of 9 weirwoods in a rough circle serves as a sacred place of prayer. The Common Hall is a great timbered keep where the brothers of the Night's Watch gather to take their meals. Its high rafters serve as a roost for crows, whose cawing echoes through the hall as fires burn low in the hearths. The rookery crowns a stout wooden keep, where the ravens of Castle Black are kept and tended. Beneath it lie the quarters of the castle's maester, allowing him to care for the birds and swiftly send messages when needed. The armoury houses the weapons and armour of the Watch, as well as the tools of the forge. It is here that Donald Noy, the blacksmith of the Watch, crafts and repairs arms for the brothers. The old flint barracks serves as the living quarters for most of the watchmen. Once built to accommodate many hundreds, its long halls now stand only partly filled. Below ground lies the vaults, where the Watch stores its food and preserves its most precious records. Castle Black Library is said to contain works not even found in the Citadel, holds drawings of the faces of the weirwoods, texts on languages of the children of the forest, and scrolls from even ancient old Valyria. The Shield Hill, built of dark stone, once served as a grand feast hall. In the days when the Night's Watch was a far greater institution in number, its walls were adorned with brightly painted shields of knights who had taken the black. Upon swearing their vows, each man set aside his personal arms to hang upon the walls, taking up instead the plain black shield of the Brotherhood. We have Brock, Gavin the Trader, the Great Walrus. Howd Wanderer walks alone, Tormund says. But there is still Hartle the Huntsman, Hartle the Handsome, Blindos. Your old father commands a following, but most are his own sons and grandsons. He has 18 wives, half of them stolen on raids. Which of these? None. I know these men by their deeds. We should be fitting for nooses, not giving them our castles. Jon Snow and Bowen Marsh on the potential garrison for Reigate and Sable Hall. A Dance with Dragons Chapter 69. John 13. East of Castle Black, you will find the small castle of Oakenshield. During Lord Commander Jon Snow's regarrisoning of the abandoned castles, he put Tormund Giantsbane, a wildling leader, in command of it. Woodswich by the Pool is east of Oakenshield, and some say it got its name due to a witch that lived in a nearby wood. However, there is little evidence for this. Farther east still is Savile Hall. In 50 AC, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch appointed Sir Oliver Bracken and Sir Ryman Mallory, both former members of King Maegor the Cruel's Kingsguard, sent to the war by King Jaehaerys, to garrison these castles. They were tasked with restoring the long-neglected castles of Reigate and Sable Hall. However, ambition overcame their duty, and the two knights rebelled, seeking to claim the castles as seats of their own. Loyal brothers of the Night's Watch, aided by men from Winterfell, swiftly retook Reigate. So Ryman Mallory and his followers abandoned Sabble Hall, fleeing north beyond the wall, into the haunted forest. Lord Walton Stark took a host in pursuit, but was overcome by giants in the frozen wilds. In time, a wildling chieftain brought Ryman's head to Eastwatch-by-the-Sea, declaring that his people had slain and devoured the Knight's company. Thus ended the brief and ill-fated rebellion of the False Brothers. The castle of Rhymegate, the other castle that was commanded by Bracken and Mallory, is located east of Sabble Hall. Both these castles were garrisoned by Lord Commander Jon Snow. We know that at least Sabble Hall was put in command of Halleck, a notable wildling raider. East of Rhymegate is Longbarrow, which Jon Snow re-garrisons with spearwives under the command of Iron Emmett, a young ranger of the Watch, with Jon's friend Dolores Ed as his chief steward. The castle to the east, Torches and Greyguard, are both also re-garrisoned, with Greyguard put in command of Devin Sealskinner, a wildling leader. Davos had traded at Eastwatch in his smuggling days. The Black Brothers made hard enemies but good customers for a ship with the right cargo. The Thoughts of Davos Seaworth, A Storm of Swords Chapter 54, Davos 5. Eastwatch-by-the-Sea is the final and most eastern castle of the Night's Watch, perched on a grey, windswept shore along the Bay of Seals. A number of fisherfolk dwell near the fortress, eking out a meagre existence along the harsh coastline. The castle is commanded by Cotter Pike, with Maester Harmond attending to its scholarly and medical needs. Eastwatch maintains a small fleet of galleys, including larger ships capable of crossing the narrow sea, and lean, fast vessels for combat patrols. These ships include the Talon, Blackbird, and Stormcrow, which patrol the Bay of Seals, intercepting smugglers who attempt to trade weapons with the free folk. Some wildlings prefer to trade directly at Eastwatch rather than Castle Black, as visiting ships make trade easier and more accessible. The Night's Watch also breeds sure-footed mules at Eastwatch, capable of traversing the icy slopes of the wall, aiding in the transportation and patrols along the northern frontier. While serving at Eastwatch-by-the-Sea, a Maester Balder authored The Edge of the World, and Maester Willis, who studied the customs of the free folk and lived among them. Corlys Velaryon once visited Eastwatch aboard the Ice Wolf as part of his famed 9 voyages. In 219 AC, following the Third Blackfire Rebellion, Aegor Rivers, better known as Bittersteel, was captured and sentenced to join the Watch by King Aerys I. However, the ship transporting him north to Eastwatch was intercepted, and Aegor returned to the Golden Company to support House Blackfire in exile. When Maester Aemon Targaryen took the Black, Sir Duncan the Tall escorted him aboard the Golden Dragon to ensure his safe arrival at Eastwatch. Also on the voyage was Brendan Rivers, better known as Bloodraven, and many members of the Raven's Teeth, all sent by King Aegon V to join the Watch, alongside Aemon. Prior to Robert's rebellion, the smuggler Davos Seaworth traded frequently at Eastwatch. As a youth, he served aboard the Cobblecat. The ship was seized by Eastwatch galleys for illegally trading weapons with the free folk, and the captain was executed at the castle. There are fewer than 200 men stationed at Eastwatch under the command of Cotter Pike. Tyrion Lannister and the officers of Castle Black enjoyed succulent crabs shipped from Eastwatch in barrels of snow. Jon Mormont, the Lord Commander of the Watch at the time, tells Tyrion there are reports that the fisherfolk near Eastwatch have seen White Walkers. Stannis Baratheon and his forces sail to Eastwatch, then ride west with Cotter Pike's scouts to defeat Mance Rayder's host in the battle beneath the wall. Queen Selyse Florent, Princess Shireen Baratheon, and Stannis' fleet remain at Eastwatch. When Melisandre has a vision of the submerged tower by the sea, Jon ponders if Eastwatch might be that tower. In order to save thousands of wildling lives trapped at Hardhome, Cotter Pike leads 11 ships in a rescue mission, with Glendon Hewitt remaining to hold Eastwatch. Baldwin Marsh, tasked with collecting the treasures of the wildlings crossing south and having the toll sent to Eastwatch. Because the mammoths are too big to travel through the wall at Castle Black, the giants are sent east to round the wall at Eastwatch.